Hi, everyone. Here's a great episode, I think, today on our podcast, Be Heard Women, Empowering Women. Today, I have two women, very powerful women, and they are Linda Modaro and Nelly Kaufer. And they wrote a book called Reflective Meditation Cultivating Kindness and Curiosity in the Buddha's Company. Wow, that's a mouthful. But we are going to talk about things like meditation and different techniques and for just getting quiet. And we're also going to have excerpts from their book, which is going to be fabulous. So, who wants to start with who they are? Let's talk a little bit about who you are. Linda, do you want to start? Okay, go ahead.
Sure, why not? Um, Nelly, well, I'll talk about me in relationship with Nelly because Nelly and I met at a teacher training conference. And at that point, we had both been teaching meditation for many years,
Mhm.
different styles. And we came together with this form of an open, receptive meditation practice, something that just drew us in.
Mm.
And my history is, as an acupuncturist, as a Qigong, moving meditation teacher, I was riveted on this kind of newer style and approach and ate it up, just gobbled it up, and ended up working with Nelly. And we have a full Sangha, wrote a book, and it's still living a full life.
Amazing. And Nellie,
Yeah.
how about you? How did you get into the mix?
Well, I've been teaching meditation forever since 1979. And it just, I don't know, I saw it create such powerful changes in myself and the people I worked with. And I might say, honestly, the women I worked with, because at that time I was only teaching women, because there were no women teachers around. It was all men. And women wanted to be taught by women. And so I stepped up to that task.
Right.
And as Linda said, we met up in, I think it was 2005. And I spotted her as somebody sort of a kindred spirit, somebody who had a deep, enduring commitment to
Mhm.
teaching meditation and also who had a lot of integrity.
Yeah.
And I could trust, I can trust Linda
And I'm
completely.
a woman.
And you're a woman.
Right.
Um, and we are both very, and our work style is very similar. So
No,
that's a
I think if I'm correct, Nellie, you're a psychotherapist, correct?
yes,
And you have found a way to integrate like Buddhist psychology into your clinical practice techniques. Is that correct? Am I on the right
yes,
track?
you are on the right track.
Okay. Well, what I want to ask about that, I know a tiny little bit about Buddhism, but there are four enabling truths that form the Buddhist techniques, I think. Am I right?
For what did you say?
Ennobling.
Truths, T R U
Ah,
T H, truths. Am I
okay, yes.
correct? Yeah.
Right.
What are they?
Well, we've rewritten them in the book, and we've even changed their name from the Four
That's
Noble
great.
Truths, which makes it sound very kind of rigid. There's this truth, and then there's this truth,
Yes.
and then there's this truth, and that's how it's often taught. And we switched it to the Four Ennoblings, understandings that really ennoble us as humans.
So do you
In this,
call it the four ennobling truths of,
No,
what do you
no,
call it
we
exactly?
call it the four ennoblings. So we're putting people into a process. And this
Mhm.
this is really, I think, Marie, part of the distinction that we're doing is taking it out of this capital T truth, there are four, you must find these, to the process that we actually go through in a meditative experience that helps each person find their own way. And
Mm.
that
Mhm.
process is very ennobling.
I see.
Ennobling. I'm spelling it because it is not a common word. I mean, it's taken from archaic language, so
Could
to
you spell
speak.
that again? Could you spell?
ENNOBLING.
Yes, I kept thinking you were saying the same word, but you're not. It's like a hyphen between N and N, and nobling, or is it all one word? It's an archaic
All one
word.
word.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to look into that word. I never heard that, and I love
It's in the
words.
dictionary.
But very importantly, it's okay. So noble has kind of a patriarchal royalty. You know, if you're noble, you're part of the royalty. And we really wanted to bring this down to earth, to the people, us human beings who are not noble royalty, but that it is ennobling. There is a process that feels like it changes you in a way that you could become more, well, I don't want to use the word noble here. What should we say, Linda, for that?
I think more authentic, more
Yes,
true
I
to
like authentic.
yourself,
Yeah.
more ethical, more honest. I mean, those are kind of the words we lean towards, rather than trying to really get to a high ideal of being above the human mundane experience.
Yeah, I like the authentic. I do. So you wrote this book, and in this book, you talk about. Do you talk about reflective meditation? I want to say medication. Don't ask me why. Do you talk about reflective meditation and other types of meditation in the book?
We just speak about reflective meditation, which, by the way, we coined that term to describe what we're doing because we have such a strong leaning into reflecting upon what's gone on in the meditation. And therefore, we could develop the capacity to reflect on what's going on in our life and not just respond in a knee-jerk way, but in a more reflective way.
Wow, that
Right.
sounds
And
great. Go ahead.
well, one just to jump on that a little bit is that um, there's this day called Self-Awareness Day that's coming up on September 28th, and reflection is a form of awareness. It's actually a big part of awareness. So, in bringing a meditation, being present with what you are experiencing and being honest about it, and then reflecting on it, which is another kind of awareness, we're
Yes.
really expanding the possibilities for people to be more engaged in their lives and really be with what matters to them. So we celebrate, like
Yeah.
that's our
Yeah.
holiday,
I
upcoming
can
holiday.
actually see clearly the way it can fit into psychotherapy or psychology. I am in therapy again, and I know I was told, like, when I get triggered, because I still get triggered by certain things, to sit in silence and reflect and go into my core, go into my heart, and think about why and that kind of thing. So it kind of sounds similar to what you're saying. What can women gain from reading this particular book, do you think?
If you don't mind, I want to go back to what you just said and
Oh,
go a
okay,
little
that's
farther
what you
before.
can.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're completely right. It is very similar to what you're doing when you get triggered. We are developing that capacity in reflective meditation to really, it becomes like the go-to. Like we don't have to be triggered. We can just be like, why did I say that? Like, or was that didn't go so well in that conversation? What was that about?
Yes.
Or many other examples.
Exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. And, you know, I'm a much better now than years ago because I got sober when I was 40. I had 32 years of sobriety. Actually, no, 32 years of sobriety. But once I got an unclouded mind, I was able to find the tools to put me on a spiritual journey and to find out about things like meditation and just silent prayer. Prayer doesn't have to be words, things like that, and I'm always looking for techniques that are new to me, and part of the reason I have the podcast. So what's different about your meditation book? The reflective part, I assume.
Well, the reflective part, but let's even go back to what your therapist told you to just sit quietly and reflect. I mean, those are the simplest instructions for a meditation practice, and they're really they really are instructions. Be comfortable, sit quietly,
Yeah.
relatively still, and reflect and contemplate, let things happen, and then after you come out of that period, take another time to reflect.
Yeah.
Now we also add something else of developing spiritual friendship so that
Hmm.
you can actually talk about your experience with somebody else. So it could be your therapist, it could be a fellow meditator. Nelly and I, talk about our experience in meditation. That's
Yes.
been an anchor for our friendship, and it's
Absolutely.
developed over many years.
It's great that you said that because I belong to Unity of the Palm Beaches, and we don't call ourselves a church because we're not a religion. We're a prayer movement. And my minister does meditation as part of the service on Sunday. And he also calls himself my prayer partner. And every Saturday we call each other, and we get our little venting out of the way because both our husbands have a similar condition. We're both caretakers. And then at the end, we do a little silent meditation. So that's my spiritual friendship. That's my person. And you're so right about that. So right. And I love that we have that schedule that I know Saturdays we're going to call each other. Sunday, he's going to do meditation at service. Because to me, I think I need routine or else I won't do things. I need to be, that's me.
Well, that's why, Marie, we actually, at the start of the pandemic, literally on March 13th or 20th,
17th,
17th,
2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
we started, when we were all in lockdown, we started a daily online meditation group. And here we are in September 2023, and it's still going.
Yes.
And that's a place people can come together and people feel. And your listeners are, by the way, welcome to join us if they're interested. It's open and it's a drop-in situation, and there's no charge. You can just donate as you
You
see.
have to give me the ID for that. Zoom, right? It's on Zoom? Or your
So at
website?
any rate, we
It's
need
on
each
Zoom.
other. That's the point. We need each
Yes,
other.
yes. Um,
We need community. We need what's
me
called in
too.
Buddhism, Sangha.
What's it called?
Sangha is what the
A
word is in
Sangha.
Buddhism,
Yeah,
which
I
means
got it.
community.
Community. On Thursdays at 11:15, we have that group. We have a group, and there's only, I would say, 8 to 12 people that attend, which is too bad. But we're there, and we get fed what we need, and we meditate then too. So I guess I'm meditating more than I thought.
I would say,
I start
according
to
to our
look at it.
definition, true.
Yeah, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to get up at sunrise every day and meditate. It's part of my life. It's part of my life,
Right. Right.
And I think
Right.
that's important. So
And
let's talk
maybe
about
your
Linda,
listeners.
I'd
Go
like to
ahead, go
read
ahead.
this section here,
Oh,
learning
yes.
to meditate from what comes up
Okay.
in meditation,
Please do
learning
that.
to live from what comes up in life. But
Go
before
ahead.
we do that, I want to tell you the way this book is different from really any other book I've ever read, I think,
Yeah.
is because the book is really a conversation between us. We're really looking and exploring, just like we're doing, the three of us actually right now. We're
Mhm.
looking at things that are going on, we're exploring them. So this book is just about conversations about all kinds of things we thought were necessary for
Yeah.
people to understand.
Yeah, go ahead and read that excerpt. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll start with the first sentence from it. So, what a radical idea that you could learn to meditate from what comes up in meditation.
Yes. And there is something radical and mysterious in learning to meditate without the specific formulaic instructions you'd expect.
Though there's something very natural, and intuitive to this. We all have experiences of doing something, then reflecting back on what we did and seeing how it went. And then we make decisions about what worked and what didn't work so well. A popular cliche expresses this pattern. hindsight is 2020.
So how do we learn together without everyone attempting to follow the same meditation instruction?
Because each of us have different stuff coming up in our meditation, right? We all have different lives, different values, different ways our minds and bodies work. And then, of course, we'll be paying attention to different things. Sounds like a potential for chaos.
In chaos, though, you can't find anything to hold on to. We hold certain principles and teachings as the foundation of our practice, but they don't override your individual experience. You sit quietly so you can hear the voices in your own inner world. We don't guide you in meditation. We trust that you know something about what is best for you at that moment, in your particular present moment. You learn to have confidence about where meditation guides you. You get better at navigating your own experience.
That was great.
That's one of our conversations.
That's great. I love the part about chaos. I actually, I'm a writer and I wrote a couple books. The first one was Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons. The wolves were my parents. And the men in my early life were the demons. And in that, it starts off quite turbulent and a lot of things, but then you see how the path has a good destination. And I bring that up because out of that, I started writing. Do you know what Vella is? It's on Amazon Kindle, Vella, Vella. It's fairly new. You can actually upload one chapter or one episode at a time to this Vella, and people can read it, and you get royalties. And one of my episodes is called Chaos, right? And I just talked about how I'm very organized and everything has to, it's like a conductor in a train. But the minute something's off schedule or doesn't go the way I had it planned, I go into chaos. So that's a perfect time to sit quietly and practice what you're teaching, correct?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talk about like kind of our past chaos or kind of the confusion that we've come from. And, all of us have had this in our growing up and our trauma history or, the things that have happened that we haven't been able to control. Both Nelly and I came to this practice, with our own history. When I first encountered the practice, I had had a near death experience and was, ready to kind of move on, but really not ready to move on. And the practice helped me go back into that and sit with that and be able to tolerate the kind of the chaos of that, that very large trauma in my early 30s. So there is something about, I think, the practice that you don't have to split off from your early happenings, and that they will eventually arise again, and you'll be able to sit with them and tolerate them and actually see new perspectives, and those situations transform in some ways from the practice. Nelly, would you kind of say something similar or different?
Yeah, I mean, we use the word metabolize as one of the things that happen. And I just feel that strong necessity. I mean, we just went out with some good friends and we had dinner and it was a lovely dinner. But then I sat down and meditated and there was just parts of it I needed to look back upon, apparently, because my meditation went that way and kind of to see a little more clearly or something like that. And then, that's really we set up an environment in the meditation. We set things up so people can feel relatively safe and comfortable. And that's sort of similar to psychotherapy. And then rather than talking to a therapist about it, you're talking to yourself about it. But we try to create an environment where it's a friendly environment, where you're talking to yourself. Because the first ennobling, one translation is, there is trauma. That is, there is hardship, there is difficulty in this life. And rather than running from it, which most schools of psychotherapy would say is what creates the problems and the symptoms, we find a way to be with it.
Yes, and jumping off that thought, for myself, I feel that in the beginning, a lot of the false core beliefs I had that were ingrained because of my parents and the way they taught me the world was and who I was, because I didn't know who I was. That sometimes comes up unconsciously, and maybe I have some toxic thoughts, I call them, and that's a lot of times too. I'm not triggered by another person or something outside. It's something in my unconscious. And try to think what religion it is. It might, if it's Buddhism or Sufi, they talk about the veils around your heart. Do you know what religion does that? It's fine if you don't. But I am not an expert on other religions, but this one caught my attention because they said, as you're on your spiritual path, those veils start to fall away from your heart. And I like that symbolism. I like that imagery. So this is a good way to heal toxic thoughts, isn't it? The meditation, the reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of it is also a lot of things that feel toxic to us, we're not that interested in. And we have this knee-jerk reaction to label it toxic and get rid of it and do practices that, really distance us from that. And this is different in the sense of saying, is that really toxic? Do I know that? I mean, can I eventually be interested in some of these things that have this strong label for me and becoming, interested in different ways in our upset, kind of things that don't go our way and we're used to, not wanting to be around them. We have a strong aversion to them.
Yes, aversion, you're right. And how do you feel like people that do have depression or anxiety disorders, how can this help them? I think it could, but how do you see it helping people that are in those states?
Well, first of all, of course, there is a place for therapy when people have anxiety or depression. We do, when we see that, we sometimes will refer them out to a therapist. I think this approach can help them, and I think there's also there's ways that it's maybe not a good idea when it's really, full
Depression.
bore depression or an anxiety that just really makes it impossible to sort of settle down and be with themselves. Why don't you take it from there, Linda?
Well, I mean, part of where I was jumping to was going to read another section of our
I would
book
like that.
about high ideals and just how it's kind of a setup
Yeah,
around.
let's do that. Let's read another excerpt. That's very good.
Okay, so this is called High Ideals with Friendliness. Again, a conversation between us.
There are such high ideals that cluster around meditation and Dharma. By the way, Dharma is, this sense, is the teachings of the Buddha. Such far-flung fantasies. I remember early on, I thought I could excise the young, confused, and sometimes scared, and also inspired person I was. It didn't go that way, but it also didn't fail to go that way. I'm no longer young, I'm not confused often, and my fear has quieted, though my inspiration lives on.
Excise, yes. It's quite harsh language that we often use on those parts of ourselves, be it depression, anxiety, etc. It seems like a familiar pattern to reach high and not quite attain it, then kick ourselves because we couldn't. User error. I was attracted to the superlative qualities that teachers talked about, but none of us could fully embody. Then we found out we could tread this path with gentleness, kindness, and friendliness. I used to believe that that would be too namby-pamby and wouldn't lead me anywhere. Was I ever wrong about that?
Lovely. So your meditation group that's online, okay? Where can people sign into that? Is it on your website?
It's on our website, which is
Yeah,
Reflective
we have-
Meditation. Oh, sorry,
I
Nelly.
don't know. Go ahead. reflectivemeditation.org would be the
That's what
best.
I have. Okay, so I will make sure I put that in the notes for the podcast. And you have a community, which I believe, Linda, you kind of run that, the Sati Sangha.
Oh, no, Nelly and I, that's
Both.
the community that came from the pandemic that
Yeah,
basically is sticking together and meditating daily. And
it's all
there's,
online.
it's
You're all
online
online.
Zoom
Oh, okay,
daily.
great.
We're on Zoom. But I want to clarify something. Linda has her own community called Sati Sangha. I have my own community here in Portland, Oregon called Pine Street Sangha.
Yeah,
But the pandemic changed everything for most people. So we found out, we didn't need to be separate. We could really come together, and that's what we've done.
that's the good part that came out of the 2020 pandemic, is getting introduced to people had never done this before and going online and having communities online. I think that was a very good thing that happened, actually. And your book, let's say the name again and where they can get it, the name of your new book.
Reflective Meditation. Subtitle: Cultivating Kindness and Curiosity in the Buddha's Company. So really the book title is sort of short, Reflective
It's
Meditation.
a subtitle, the Cultivating,
Subtitle's
Yes.
Gotcha. And where can they buy that book?
First place is Amazon.
Always.
And we're going to be having a free ebook that is available to people September 28th through October 2nd. So it's a great way to get the book and read a little bit more if you liked what you heard today, and then to consider joining us daily online.
And Linda, are you considering an audiobook?
We'd love to do an audiobook at some time, Nelly.
I think it seems perfect. It's very easy to do. And, you guys, you have it all set out. You just have to read your book out loud and get it up there on Audible, because a lot of people like to listen these days more than read. I like to read. I still like to read books. Well, thank you, ladies. This was wonderful. Is there anything else you want to add before we close? Anything about cultivating kindness and curiosity in the Buddhist?
Well, it's the whole atmosphere that we create intentionally and authentically for the meditation practice, is turn towards your meditation with kindness and curiosity. Most often in the past, other meditation practices, I went towards harshness and not really wanting to look at some of the hard stuff. So it's really completely embedded.
Gentle. It's gentle.
And it has the potential to transform our lives, your life.
Transformation. That's right. So I am going to go to your website, reflectivemeditation.org. And I hope a lot of my listeners do too. And I will have to have you back again, even to come back and read some more chapters. It would be wonderful.
Oh yeah, there's many more topics to discuss.
All right, we shall talk, and we will set something up for next time.
Okay, good.
Nice meeting both of you. Thank you for being here.
You too, Marie.
Namaste.